Good morning, everybody. I am going to try as much as possible to be calm throughout this presentation. I come to speak with a very heavy heart because going by the title of my live broadcast, you will understand exactly how I feel right now. There is a crisis in the country and nobody can deny that. However, I am truly bemused by the silence of the churches, not individual heads, but of the collective silence of a collective body of the churches. I may not stand the right position to speak about other denominations, but I will speak about my denomination, the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, whose leaders so far are what I would like to call a disappointment as far as this struggle is concerned. Not because I want them to fight or to join for no reason, or because I want them to support the federation talks, or because I want them to support the unity talks, but because I want them to look at this from a moral perspective, from a religious perspective, from a perspective where we just look at this situation like humans, not as a church, not as anything. Thousands have been molested all around the national territory, especially in the Anglophone Cameroons. Many have been killed. Many have been killed. Many are in jail right now. But the church has been miserably quiet on this. And I start to wonder, what then is the use of this institution if they cannot stand up for what is morally incorrect and stand against it? During the protest in Buea, after those children were molested, were beaten, were picked up, were jailed, were raped, I personally decided to contact the clerics of my church. I started with a pastor, and he showed me his disdain and distaste of everything that was happening, but also told me that he could not single-handedly lead a movement without the head of his church. I understood that, so I decided to call the heads of the church. I called the synod clerk of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, and I explained what was happening to him. And I told him I was hoping that the church would gather all its pastors and they would go on a cleric march. Inasmuch as we want a peaceful protest, I am sure that the armed forces may be weak in the presence of pastors. And that I said to the synod clerk. And he told me that he was going to channel my problem and my request to the moderator of the PCC. I did not wait for him to channel the problem, because immediately after I hung up on him, I called the moderator and I explained it to him. He said he was on the road and he had just come in. He cannot bump into a situation without knowing what the problem was, and as we spoke, he was actually on his way to another city. Now, I don't expect him to bump on a problem, yes, but rape, molestation, people and children in jail, I'm sorry, I don't know if we need some sort of a crystal ball to be able to look into and know that that is wrong. I told him what I was expecting of the church, of a church as my church. I told him I was expecting a walk of the pastors, and that I was going to find a way to put every one of them in every denomination. I was going to try to contact all of them. I may want to say, to my greatest dismay, the moderator of the PCC told me he cannot sacrifice the Presbyterian Church. He cannot go out to the street because he needs to know the positions of other denominations before he could go out. He needs to know the positions of other denominations before he can take a word or say a word, he as the leader of the Presbyterian Church. He cannot sacrifice the Presbyterian Church. Now, I probably want to understand his position, but I can't. I can't because the church is supposed to be the one pillar of the nation that stands for what is right. Martin Luther King, he led the people. He did not bother about his church. He did not bother about his denomination. He did not bother about the sacrifice. He led the people across the bridge of Selma. He was a pastor and he led the people. Because when something is wrong, it is wrong. Back in the days, the blacks were molested, the blacks were destroyed, they were raped, they were killed, they were hit. Martin Luther King decided on his own to rise and say, I will lead the people across the bridge of Selma on over to Montgomery, and we are going to sort this out and talk this out with the leaders of this nation. Now we expect our leaders of our churches to also rise to this occasion. And when I contacted them, and that was what they told me, they cannot sacrifice the Presbyterian Church. You cannot sacrifice the Presbyterian Church, yet we have children whose lives have been sacrificed. Children who were members of the Presbyterian Church, sacrificed in a fight for their own freedom, molested and brutalized, all their rights taken away from them, even their basic human right. And you tell me that you cannot sacrifice the Presbyterian Church. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But when you have people that you look up to, leaders in a church that you belong and that you look up to, and they will use the status quo of the church to do you wrong. They would use the fact that they cannot sacrifice a church. Then you begin to wonder. You begin to wonder what you belong to. I know there is a God. I did not lose faith in my God. But ever since the Boya incidents, I called him. He said he didn't know everything that happened. I have given him time to come back from his numerous trips around and try to look into this matter. Till date, he has done nothing. He has done nothing at all. To stand up at the pulpit in the church and say you do not agree is not enough, Mr. Moderator. It is not enough. You have access to the President of the Republic. You have a green card that allows you to enter into the presidency. What did you do with that card? You as an Anglophone, first of all, you as a man of God who is supposed to be a leader of the people, what did you do? I ask you, Mr. Moderator. I am disappointed. Each day, I hear children being buried from the struggle. Each day. This morning, people have been killed in the prisons of La République, where we have our brothers jailed. some of these children are members of your church, Mr. Moderator. Now, if you cannot, forget about the struggle. Just stand up for these children, for these members of your church. My father will stand up for every member of his family because it is his responsibility, because it is his duty. He will stand up. But now when you tell me I cannot sacrifice the Presbyterian Church, I have to know what the other denominations are saying. So if you could contact the other denominations and let us know what they are saying before we could collectively join this fight. Because in as much as I am the head of the church, I cannot sacrifice the Presbyterian Church. Are you for real, Mr. Moderator? It is well. But it is people like this that give atheists the reason. But I refuse to believe that my God will let this go. I refuse to believe that it has